In this video, we will show you how to replace your crankshaft vibration dampener on this Ford Explorer. This will be mounted to your engine. Let's get into it. Let's make our way along the passenger side of the engine. We're looking for the serpentine belt tensioner. Now looking up along the top area of this, you can tell you have a squared out notch. That'll perfectly fit a 3/8 drive ratchet. We'll just get this right inside there, turn this clockwise, and then remove the belt. To remove the belt, we'll pull it right off of that front upper pulley. That's the alternator. Now you can release tension from that tensioner and remove your tool. Now the next thing we'll do is fully remove that belt from the area. Now with the belt out of there, let's just give it a close inspection. You want to inspect all the way around the belt in the ribs. If you see dry rot or cracking in this area, it's a good idea to replace the belt. Go ahead and turn it over and make sure you don't see any cracks or damage on the reverse side as well. Assuming that looks good, your belt should be reusable, and we'll set this aside. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have your steering wheel turned as far to the right as possible. That'll give you a whole bunch of room inside of the passenger side wheel well area. Down along the subframe, you're going to find that you have a couple push clips that you're going to need to remove. We'll start with these two lower ones, and then we'll finish with an upper one. Just popping out the center using a small pick. Once you have the center at least pulled out a little bit, you can continue on with the trim tool. As you remove the center, that will unlock it, and then the rest should slide out as well. This one. Now we can take this and move it around as needed. The next thing we'll do is start dislodging the inside wheel well. This one's made out of semi-hard plastic. We'll continue on to this push clip, removing it in the same way as we had removed the others, starting with the center and then removing the outer aspect as well. If it comes apart, that's okay. You can just push it right back together. Make sure we leave it loose so it's in the unlocked position. The next thing you want to do is try to hold this inner wheel well up a little bit so you can gain access to your 18mm crank bolt. There's that bolt. The next thing we're going to do is start to remove that crank pulley. To do that, you want to make sure you have a tool that looks like this. It has 3 little ears that are going to grab onto the edges on the inside of the crank pulley and then pull it right off by driving against the center. Let's take this and put it in position. You'll notice looking at the crank, you have this raised area on all 3 holes. That's the area where your tool will sit. So while we're putting this in here, we're going to start at the lower area. It fits in best that way, and then you just twist it clockwise. While applying pressure on each one of those 3 ears, we'll turn that center shaft in to apply pressure. Make sure you're centered. Now the next thing we'll do for our particular tool is use a 1-inch wrench to hold the tool and the crank from spinning, and we'll use a 19mm to drive in the center driver. When using this tool, you never want to use an impact tool. Do it by hand. Now we can remove this from the area. Now we can twist the tool counterclockwise, remove that, and there's our crank. The next thing we'll want to do while the crank pulley is out of the way is give the seal a quick inspection. If it looks like there's any type of oil coming out of this area, or it's cracked and dry rotted, it's a good idea to go ahead and replace this. Just wipe it down. Give it a quick inspection. Make sure it is still soft and pliable. It's not torn, worn, or damaged in any way. Ours looks fine, so we can continue. All right, let's get ready to install our harmonic balancer or crank pulley. Along the backside, make sure you use some clean motor oil on a gloved finger and lubricate this entire area along the outside and then also inside of this hole. Once you have all of that lubricated, we can continue on. Now we can take this and put it in position, making sure it's going on as straight as possible. You'll only be able to push it on so far. After that, the next thing we'll have to do is push it in with our tool. Now we can continue on with our pulley installer. We'll start with the adapter. Find the one that matches the bolt and then put it right inside the center of the pulley and start it in by hand, so you're sure it is not cross-threading into place. We'll continue on with a 12mm to tighten that adapter. Now we can use the rest of that pulley installer. We'll make sure we have a big old base plate on here that'll press up against the pulley. We're going to continue on by turning the center until it bottoms out against the adapter. Once it has, we'll make sure that we tighten the plate up against it. Once we've done that, we'll make sure it's nice and tight by turning the larger nut. Now we can put on the rest of our tool here. Just take this and put it in position. This on here. Now with the driver bolt nice and tight to the adapter, we can also put the plate up against the crank. We'll do that by turning the larger nut. Now we'll use our 1 1/16 wrench and a 16mm. Turn the large nut, which is going to be forcing the pulley onto the crank. We don't necessarily want to turn the crank pulley, so we'll be holding it in place with our 16mm wrench. You should feel this pulley sliding on fairly easily. Just keep going till it stops. All right there, feels as though it wanted to bottom out for me. Just make sure it's snug. Once you feel as though you have that pulley fully secured, continue on by loosening your 1 1/16 jam nut. Now once you have that loose, let's continue on to removing our 16mm headed driver. Get this out of the way. And now we can use our 12mm to remove our adapter. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is find a nice rubber strap wrench. We're going to go around the harmonic balancer or crank pulley. What we need to do is hold this in position so we can continue on with our mounting bolt. I'll just have this in the down position, and that'll rest up against the subframe. Now we can continue on with that mounting bolt. It's a good idea to add a little bit of clean motor oil to the threaded area. We'll start this in by hand, snug it up, and torque it to 89 foot-pounds. Once you have that torque to 89 foot-pounds, loosen it at least one full turn. Now once you have that loosened at least one full turn, go ahead and snug it and then torque it to 37 foot-pounds. After you've torqued that to 37 foot-pounds, you need to turn it an additional 90 degrees. That's a quarter turn. Now we can remove our strap wrench from the area. Now we can lower this back down and start putting in all of our push clips. Let's start with this top one. We'll slide that into place and press it in. By pressing in the center, that puts it in the locked position. Now we can continue to our other three. Now we can do our three lower ones. Those ones go directly into the subframe. We'll press in the outer aspect, lock it in with the center. Double check to make sure all of your push clips are installed. Now let's make our way back up into the engine compartment to that serpentine belt tensioner. The next thing we'll do while having our tool on the tensioner is continue on to that belt. Let's get our serpentine belt all the way down along the bottom towards the rear. We're going to put it onto that crank pulley. With that in place along there, we'll take the bottom area of that belt and bring it towards the front around the AC compressor pulley. There we are. At this point, you just want to make sure that the belt is sitting on all the grooves on each one of those two pulleys. Now, as far as the top area of the belt, we're going to have it coming up and over the crank pulley and then down underneath the flat surface of the tensioner pulley. At this point, we'll continue on by applying pressure to that belt by giving it a tug up at the alternator. Let's use that tensioner, remove tension from the belt, and slide it up and over the alternator pulley. At this point, we'll release tension from this and double check all of the pulleys. Looking down in here, I'm going to pay close attention to the AC compressor pulley. Make sure it's sitting on all of the grooves properly. And then do the same exact thing to the crank pulley. That one looks good back there. We'll check this alternator pulley. Assuming everything looks good, go ahead and remove the tool from your tensioner. Okay friends, we fully installed our part. At this point, we can go ahead and start up the vehicle. We're going to let it run for approximately 5 to 10 seconds. Turn it right back off and double check that belt routing. You want to make sure that it's sitting on all the pulleys properly. Just having a quick look down here. I can tell everything looks like it's sitting perfectly. At this point, you can go ahead and close the hood and take your vehicle for a road test. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.